Hello geometry classes. This video will provide some helpful examples from section 8.3. Be sure to review this video before the retake test if you need help on this particular proficiency. Let's take a look at some of these examples. So here we have a problem that asks us to find the area of each shaded region, round the answer to two decimal places, and to use pi equals 3.14. What do we know about this problem? Right away, we know that the length of the arc is 49.72 inches. So between K and L, this distance right here is 49.72 inches. We also know that we're talking about a sector or a piece of the circle. We're looking for the area of the shaded region, and it's not clear because of the printer what the shaded region is, but we can identify that by where the angle is. So because the angle is pretty clearly identified here, we're looking at this area right here. We're looking at this sector. So if we know that the length of the arc KL is 49.72 inches, if we know this, we can work backwards to figure out what theta is. So remember that our equations for sectors are going to be either arc length equals theta over 360 times 2 pi r, or we might use arc sector, which is theta over 360 times pi r squared. Now these are the two equations we'll use for pieces of circles. When we're talking about the whole circle, we're just going to use 2 pi r and pi r squared by themselves. But since we're talking about a piece here, we're using one of these two equations. We're given that the length of the arc is 49.72 inches, so we know that. And we also know that the radius is 10 inches. With this information and this information, we can find the angle. And we need the angle to plug into this, the arc sector equation, to figure out what the area of the shaded region is, which is what the question is asking for. So let's go ahead and try this step by step. We're going to start with our first equation. We're going to start with arc length to figure out what the angle, what the central angle is. In this case, our arc of KL is 49.72 inches. So we have 49.72 inches equals theta over 360 times 2 pi, and our r is 10 inches, okay? So now we've got this equation. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this. We've got our equation. We just need to simplify it now. We need to solve for the missing variable, which is our central angle. So let's attempt that. If we're following algebra rules, okay, we can simplify step by step. 49.72 equals theta over 360 times 20 pi. Now, we need to get this alone, this angle by itself. So we have to get rid of everything that's in the way. So I like to go farthest away first. So the farthest thing away from this angle is this 20 pi. Let's get rid of that first. As you should remember from algebra, if you're multiplying something, in order to change sides, you should do the opposite operation. So in this case, because we're multiplying by 20 pi on this side, in order to get rid of it, right, to move it to this side, we can divide by that amount. So let's go ahead and try that. We divide by 20 pi. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So let's divide by both sides. Now, what happens when we have something that's the same on top and something that's the same on bottom? So we have a 20 pi on top and we have a 20 pi on the bottom. They're going to cancel each other out. So our 20s cancel, they're gone, and our pi's cancel, so they're gone. What we're left with is 49.72 divided by 20 pi equals theta over 360. Now, at this point, you can cross multiply, just like you've done in the past. So, if we were cross multiplying this equation, the way we could go about this is take the left side, what's on top on the left, with what's on the bottom on the right, and multiply those together. So if we were to multiply these together, we would end up with 17,899.2. So we would have 17,899.2 on this side. Then we can cross multiply the other side. So we'll take our 20 pi and we'll multiply it by theta. So we have 20 pi times theta. We still want to get the theta alone, so the thing that's bothering it now is this 20 pi. Again, it's being multiplied, so we do the opposite. Let's divide. We divide both sides by 20 pi. So we divide by 20 pi to both sides. Once again, we have something that's the same on top and something that's the same on bottom. So the 20s are going to cancel, the pi's are going to cancel, and what we're left with is theta. We're left with theta equals 17,899.2 divided by 20 pi. If we were to actually calculate that out and type it into our calculator, we would have 17,899.2 divided by 20 pi, which equals approximately 285 degrees. So our angle is 285 degrees. But that's not the answer to this question. What we're looking for is the area of the shaded region, and that's the area that the angle is pointing to in this case. So we have to take our angle and plug it into the arc sector equation. So let's go ahead and erase this. So now we know that our angle is 285 degrees. The arc sector equation, as I mentioned before, is arc sector equals theta over 360 times pi r squared. All we have to do now is plug it in. 285 divided by 360 times pi, r is 10, squared, and we're left with 285 divided by 360 multiplied by pi times 10 squared, which is 100, gives us approximately 248.58 inches squared, because we're talking about area here. So our arc sector is 248.58 inches squared, and this is the answer to this, to the area of each shaded region. Okay, so that is how you would solve this problem. I want you to note also that if this was reversed and you were given the area first, you can do the same process. Just start with the area equation or the arc sector equation, figure out what the angle is, and then plug that into the arc length equation. So you can manipulate both equations, just make sure you're following the algebra steps carefully and plugging in appropriately. If you have any questions, come and talk to me. There's one other piece of this that I wanted to go over, and that was what happens when there's a pi involved. Now, many of you made a mistake on your test where you decided to ignore the pi. So what I mean by that is when I say the area is 196 pi, I really mean it's 196 pi. I don't mean that it's 196 and the pi is there for show. It means that the pi is part of it. So remember that pi is 3.14. So area is really 196 times 3.14, which is equal to 196 times 3.14, 615.44 meters squared. Now, you don't actually have to calculate it that way every time. You can do all your steps with pi, but don't forget that the pi is there because your answer will be different. So I'm just going to quickly go through this problem. If I know that the area is equal to 196 pi, and I also know that the area equation is equal to pi r squared, these are equal to each other. They're equal to each other. So I can equal these. I now have 196 pi equals pi r squared. Now, I'm trying to get the r alone because the r goes into most of our equations and I want to know what it is. To get rid of it, we can go farthest away first. In this case, the thing that's bothering the r the most is this pi. Let's get rid of that first. When they're next to each other like this, they're being multiplied. Because they're being multiplied, in order to get rid of it or move it to the other side, we have to do the opposite. So if they're being multiplied now, the opposite is dividing. So let's divide by pi on both sides. So we're dividing by pi on both sides. Now, look at both sides carefully. Here we have a pi on top, and here we have a pi on the bottom. They're going to cancel. Same thing on this side. We have a pi here and a pi here. They are going to cancel. Both of those cancel, and we're left with 196 equals r squared. Then we can square root both sides like this, and we're left with r equals square root of 196, which is 14. And that would be 14 meters. So we know what r is. Now, it's very easy to find the diameter because we're just doubling that. So we would have 14 and 28 meters. Do not forget about the pi. If the pi is part of the number, you have to include it, and you have to include it in the algebra steps. But once you do, you'll notice that you'll have lots of things canceling, usually, or the numbers will turn out to be very different. Okay, so that's where I'm going to leave this. If you have questions in the future, let me know before the retake test. Thanks for watching.